Hello, Sydneys! I have finally watched Scream 6! And with this sixth entry into the Scream franchise, we follow again the Carpenter sisters about a year since their Woodsboro attack, along with the Meeks twins just trying to attend college, move on with their lives, only for Ghostface to show back up and chase them around the streets of New York City. And that's all pretty much said without giving any spoilers to you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review. I am not going to be attempting to ruin this movie for you. In fact, I want to warn you, just by you watching the spoiler-free review, YouTube and its algorithm is now going to start to recommend you Scream 6 videos. And since the movie has already released in some international markets, people are busting out their phones, recording big spoilery parts of the movie, and probably uploading it to YouTube. So be careful after watching this. I do plan to give you a spoiler review. Since Paramount let me see the movie a whole week early, they asked I wait to post my spoiler review till Monday. So that's when you can expect my spoiler review, and then from there on, it's going to be Scream Week, because I'm going to do a ranking video, I'm going to talk a theory video about the next one. It's going to be a lot of fun around here, so make sure you subscribe. But okay, getting into it here, as you can tell with the stuff surrounding me, I'm a pretty big Scream fan. I have loved this franchise since I was a little kid. The core memories I have in my mind of watching those movies for the very first time is just stuff I'm always going to cherish. So of course, last year when they released Scream 5 without Wes Craven directing and the radio silence team attached, I was hesitant, but I walked out relatively happy with that movie. I thought it was a nice step back into the Scream world, introduced us to some new fun characters while still being able to include some of the big legacy stars like Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette. It wasn't like the best Scream movie ever made or my favorite of the sequels, but I had a good time with it. So hearing Scream 6 was coming out, I was still on board. I want to see these characters return and see what's been going on with their lives. But the number one thing I was begging for as soon as they announced Scream 6 is that they finally try something different, that they do a little experimenting with the franchise. Because like I was saying, I enjoyed Scream 5, but to me it became very obvious that that simple, safe formula of Scream can only be repeated so many times before its magic is obviously lost and we're just watching another redundant Scream movie. So then I see it set in New York. The trailers show off Ghostface holding a shotgun, heck, a brand new mask for the very first time in the franchise, all cracked and olded up. Then the stars of the film promising this would be the goriest and most vicious Ghostface. Ooh, they better not have been lying to me. And thank goodness they did not lie to me, boy! This Scream fan walked away pretty happy with Scream 6. They finally went out of the box with Ghostface. I remember the backlash some people were given when Ghostface was holding a shotgun and pumping it out. There was really people ready to boycott and throw away the movie, but that's the stuff that I was like, yes, do more of that. And in the context of the film, that scene works perfectly, along with so much other stuff. Like, straight from the beginning, an opening sequence is crucial to a Scream movie. The opening sequence in here is unique, different. We haven't seen anything like it before, and I loved every minute of it. Then you get past the opening sequence and you think, okay, they did something different there, but I'm sure the rest of the movie will be pretty formulaic and follow the standard Scream formula and play itself out. This movie just kind of doesn't stop. It goes straight into it. You know, I was kind of bothered with the last movie being called just Scream instead of Scream 5, which is what it obviously was. So I was kind of caught off guard when they just went right back to numbering things and put the 6 attached. But it really goes to show you this movie is trying to pay respects to the fans and everyone who's followed along with these past Scream movies. You have the obvious elephant in the room that Neve Campbell publicly came out saying she's not going to be part of this movie because of a pay dispute, which I totally stand behind her and respect her decision. But I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of hurting me inside that Sidney Prescott would not be part of another Scream movie. Are you kidding me? But you watch the film and they kind of explain it perfectly. It actually wouldn't have made sense if Sidney showed up in this movie. Especially with something like the shrine being in Scream 6. That is literally a room filled with stuff that directly connects to Sidney Prescott. What a missed opportunity to have her walk through that shrine and see everything. Yet when it came time to explore the shrine in the movie, it was kind of a great example how Ghostface attacks have haunted a lot more people than just Sidney Prescott. Several of our characters we're following in here have something in that room that directly haunts them or makes them feel unease that Ghostface would have this object, and that made me really admire what they were trying to do with the shrine in this movie. And I think that's a major accomplishment on its own, that as this movie plays out, I'm not thinking to myself, man, I could really use some Sidney Prescott right now. Neve Campbell would sure shine up the spotlight in this room right here, all mainly because the surviving 4 characters who are returning in this movie, along with the new faces, are really fleshed out here. The dynamic between them really shines in this movie, and you can totally feel that they went through something traumatic in the last film that's only bonded them in this one. You know, I liked them in the last film, but I wasn't in love with their characters just yet. By the halfway point in this movie, I was like, no, I love these characters as much as the old legacy characters. Mason Gooding as Chad here gets a lot to work with and can kind of be like the standout returning character in this film. Jenna Ortega, of course, crushes it. Melissa Barrera, I think, continues to do a great job. Also, definitely just loved me every minute I had with Mindy. Also, along with the new faces in here, Josh Segura, I thought he was great for the screen time he had. Anika will probably be the standout among new fresh faces. The legacy characters, I also love what they did with in here. You can just tell the Radio Silence team are Scream fans. Matt Opla and Tyler Gillette in here just know what fans kind of want to see out of people like Kirby and Gale Weathers, and they deliver, man. Like, especially with Gale, because one of the things that I thought was lacking in the last entry was a lot of Ghostface moments, you know, chase sequences, thrill, edge on your seat stuff that makes me terrified of this Ghostface mask. The idea that a human person that is just sprinting at you with a knife could be a real possibility has just always scared me. And in this movie, there are like 4 or 5 Ghostface chase sequences and moments that outdo a lot of what the franchise has done in the past. When I tell you, you're gonna be sweating from your palms, on the edge of your seat, maybe even doing this, because I know I was doing this. I mean it, man. They took full advantage of the New York setting and got real creative with what Ghostface was capable of. Also, the film is set on Halloween. I kind of wish they played up on the Halloween aspect a little bit. Like, yeah, there's people in costumes and whatnot, and Ghostface gets to blend in, but I kind of would have liked, you know, some pumpkins, Halloween decorations. And you don't necessarily get that Halloween vibe in here, but that's a small complaint. Still, the dark alleyways, the tall buildings, that ladder sequence, and even so much more, Ghostface is a huge threat in this movie. The person behind the mask is not playing around, and I'll say it, this is the goriest and most vicious Scream movie. I thought the last movie had some pretty cool wicked kills. No, this kind of outdoes it times 10. The amount of times they like really focus in on the knife going in stomachs and like zooming in and twisting stuff, or other sequences where characters just get completely annihilated, you feel that blow, you feel that punch, and you feel for the character who's receiving that pain. All really because this movie finally was trying to do its own thing instead of living in the shadow of what came before. That's exactly what I wanted this creative team to do with Ghostface, because it's also the best way to not keep a franchise stale. But okay, now you heard me rave, you heard me geek out, just ooze all over how fantastic this movie is. Now it's time to talk about my gripes and issues I had with this movie, because it wasn't perfect. No Scream movie is, except the first one. Now, as I dive into these negatives and nitpicks, realize that they are just that. These are nitpicks from someone who is a super fan of this franchise, so as much as I love it, I'm also overanalyzing it, because I want these movies to be just right, just perfect, and they can never be, right? So even with the stuff I'm about to say, I still firmly believe Scream 6 is a winner of a sequel. It's not a follow-up that I think ruins the consistency of Scream, because I'm still a firm believer that there isn't a bad Scream movie. There are just definitely Scream movies that are better than others. So okay, not even sugarcoating it, wanting to get into the biggest gripe I had with this movie. Unfortunately, when it came to the reveal, the motive, basically everything involving the last like 10-15 minutes, I thought was actually the weakest part of the movie. I'm not going to be able to go into super details to exactly why. That's what I'll do the spoiler review for. But I just thought in a movie where you were doing things so differently, taking such risks, such unique turns with Ghostface, and then you get to the finale and you're like, this feels kind of familiar, man. Along with that, I feel like there was also a lot of plot conveniences and convoluted things that had to happen, so the audience was surprised for the reveal. Because I will say the movie does do a good job of trying to keep you on your toes and guessing who Ghostface is. But like I've mentioned, there's always going to be somebody who guesses who it is, and then they'll think they're the smartest person in the room because they're like, I saw it coming. This movie's a 1 out of 10. Get me more popcorn! The thing I thought could always save it is the motive, you know, is why is the person doing what they're doing? That's kind of one of the things that elevated Scream 5 for me. I know there's also people who disagree with me on that, but I thought the motive in Scream 5 actually worked really well, but that's again because of my position. I see toxic fandom almost every day in my comment section. I'm gonna see it right now in this video. So to see like Scream 5 deal with like entitled fans who thought they could make their own movie, while also the film playing up how how the love of a film can turn toxic and whatnot, I thought was brilliant. Here, I don't think the motive is brilliant. I think there's aspects of it that are actually kind of cool, and there's things about it that I'm like, hey, I kind of like that. That's kind of cool. But again, throughout that review, I was just kind of underwhelmed, and it sucks because everything before it was so unique and different. I thought they were also going to pull something unique and different here. In fact, even the marketing would have you think that, because again, I don't want to spoil anything, but there have been some iconic Ghostface lines in the trailers of almost every promo of Scream 6, where Ghostface is saying two specific lines that I'm like, oh, those are badass. I can't wait to see them in the context of the film. Those Ghostface lines are not in the film at all. Again, I'll bring up those lines again in my spoiler review. That being my biggest issue with the film, my other nitpicks I had here is, for one, I feel like Radio Silence or the writing team behind the past two Scream movies really need to work on like the subtlety between the group and the whole who is it factor. You know, rewatching these Scream movies every time a new Scream film comes out, you get to really admire some of the great things and the differences between someone like Wes Craven, Kevin Williamson, and the way Radio Silence does things. And one thing I've really grown to appreciate is the subtlety Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson would have with the whole whodunit factor. These characters aren't constantly pointing a finger or calling each other, hey, you're Ghostface, you're Mr. Ghostface, I know you're gonna do it. You definitely seem like a backstabber to me, or just pointing out every like movie type reference in their own movie. It feels kind of overdone in Scream 6, and I think some people might get annoyed with it. You know, I miss those moments where Ghostface would show up in a room, would quickly leave, then out of nowhere, random characters would also magically appear into the room, and you as a viewer would go, all right, they're suspicious, gonna keep an eye on. Very convenient they showed up right as soon as Ghostface left. Or moments where you would zoom in on like Cotton Weary's black boots and you realize, oh, those are also the black boots Ghostface wears. It's stuff like that that you as an audience pick up on. Now imagine all those cool subtle moments said to you out loud, spoon-fed to you. It kind of is a little over the top sometimes. Another thing I'll say without trying to get too spoilery is, man, some characters in here must have multiple organs so that they can survive some crazy attacks. I'm not saying we're getting to ridiculous levels just here, but there's definitely times where I'm going, there is no way they are still walking after what just happened. But it's also funny because in my mind, I'm like, even if they can't walk away, I'm still glad they're okay because I didn't want them to go yet. That's how much I'm loving these new characters. All in all, really, those were like my biggest nitpicks, or just the biggest things that were kind of rubbing me the wrong way. At the end of the day, great freaking Scream movie, man. A solid sequel, and honestly, this direction of unique different things is the route I want them to go in. Stop playing it safe, stop falling back on that formula in the last 10 minutes and giving us something familiar. Do something wild. Even if I'm gonna hate it, the fact that you took that risk, I think will be worth it. Just like, look at Halloween Ends. I didn't love that movie, but I really do respect some of the crazy turns it took. I'm not saying Scream 6 is Halloween Ends, though. If anything, Scream 6 is the movie that takes those risks and unique turns, but it actually works, and the audience will most likely accept it. So for Scream 6, I'm gonna give action 3.5 stars. Ghostface is chasing, running you down hallways. You get plenty of sequences with our characters trying to escape, trying to fight back, and it ends up creating some of the coolest moments of the series. Comedy in the movie, I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I enjoyed the balance of humor they had in here. It's kind of funnier than the last movie, in my opinion. I'll say there's like 1 or 2 moments where they throw in a joke where I don't feel it was needed, but for the most part, I love the humor they had in here. Drama in the movie, I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I was kind of hoping the story could really wow me and take it in a different turn, but it really didn't end up doing that, especially when you get to the ending and find out what everything is going on. But putting that aside, the story and development they give the returning characters, paired up with the legacies, I think is still an enjoyable and engaging narrative. Horror in the film, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars, man. This is the scariest Ghostface has been, and there are gonna be sequences in here that when Ghostface is slicing and dicing, you're gonna squint your eyes, you're gonna avert from the screen, you're gonna have your jaw open. I could not have been more happy with some of just the thrilling moments of this film. And on that note, with suspense, I'm gonna give it 4 stars. This is the most suspenseful Scream movie we've had since the franchise has started. I do not say that lightly. I truly mean it. If your heart is not pounding like 6 or 7 times throughout this film, you're just wanting to hate this movie. Casual fans to this Scream world, I'm gonna give it a B-. I think it actually is very crucial that you watch the previous 5 movies. With Scream 5, you might have just been fine watching the first film. To really appreciate Scream 6, I think you do have to watch the previous movies, because there's so many Easter eggs and references and embracing what came before that I feel people just walking into this might be lost on. Cinephiles, I'm gonna give it an A-, and critically, I'm going to give it a B+. As underwhelmed as I was with the last 10 minutes, I can't deny the adrenaline fun rush I had throughout this film, and for that reason alone, I think it's definitely worth adding to your collection at home.
That's a keeper. Yes.
Still, again, guys, that is just my opinion on Scream 6. I think we are going to have some heavy opinions once this movie comes out, because so many people put a lot of weight into that reveal and who Ghostface is that it can completely ruin the movie for them. But we'll get into all that nitty-gritty and really flesh out the good and the bad once I do my spoiler review and my ranking, so stay tuned for those 2 videos. Other than that, guys, I'd really love to hear your opinions down below on Scream 6 if you've gotten around to watch it. What you love, what you didn't love. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.